Do you kind of see that disadvantage? Is that like abundantly clear in the Hopevale area?
No, I'm not sure. I haven't really. I know there was a disadvantage before, but I think things are getting a bit better, and there are instances. Yeah, I mean, Hopevale has a pretty good hospital, you know, and I know my personal involvement with the hospital is that they've been pretty good. So if you want your health check done and you check and you know, you should be very healthy if you lived in Hopevale. Some people don't understand that if you lived in the outside, you'd have to pay for all these medicines. And some of this medicine is free, you know, and only it's up to you to go and make sure that you have the right medicines and that. So, you know, there's a lot of really dedicated people at the hospital who really care about, you know. So that's what the people need as far as health is. People need to use those services, you know.
Yeah.
And not just abuse them, you know.
Yeah.
And there's other things that are available at Hopevale, and there's a bit of a thing about community involvement, and I've seen it from time to time. We've tried to get above, you know, when people try to give above and start their own business or do something like that, get pulled down because people think that the community has to be involved. And one of the things about government that I don't like is that, buddy, anything that happens in a community, the government says, oh, let's go and consult with the community. And, you know, and there's a lot of changes. If I'm paying $100 a week for rent and there's a consultation to say, oh, no, you need to increase that rent, am I going to go along and say, yeah, let's really increase it? No, they don't. So, you know, consulting with the community, somebody needs to take the hard line and make that decision. You know, I think, yeah, there's lots of things that happen on the communities that people, I don't know. And, you know, there's welfare things. So, for instance, if you live in our community, you're eligible for a housing commission house, so you can pay so much. It doesn't matter how much you earn, but you still got a house. So there's people probably earning lots of money that should be put in, or should be buying a house of some sort, you know, because they earn enough money, you know.
Yep.
But some of them sit in a welfare house because that's just comfortable, and that's right. And there's no perspective here to have somebody encouraged to get into another thing. We tried that. We tried to introduce home ownership and that, you know. People don't see that point that home ownership is something that's worth a bit of equality.
Yeah.
You know?
Is that because they have that housing availability to them?
That's right. Yeah. There is some houses at Hopevale that's freehold.
Yeah.
There's freehold, and there's a lot. There's probably over 250 houses, maybe more, that are welfare houses. You know, and yeah.
And do you think that kind of causes people to struggle getting the motivation to go into their own home ownership and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Yeah.
But if you don't make some laws that says, okay, you earn too much, you need to buy your house. You know, if you don't make those, and if you don't have the strength, you might as well leave it as is.
Yeah.
So what happens at Hopevale, I just say, nah, it ain't going to work.
Yeah,
you know.
sure.
I mean, you encourage people to get into business, and people say, oh, I can't do business because other people pull it down. And that's what happens. I know that people got together and they said, oh, yeah, at Hopevale they ran a banana farm. They had a bit of this, they had this. They had a couple of tea tree farms. They used to make bricks, all of that. When it's community run, it doesn't run.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. And a lot of areas where there is funding available, it's just funding, and when that ends, so does the business. You know what I mean? And I know there's people that have got some good ideas and good things, but they don't get helped. You know. In fact, they get pushed into being stretched. They give up in the end, you know. No,
sure.
I can see that Hopevale can be quite a prosperous place, but, you know, and there's a lot of natural resources here that we could use, but we don't, you know. And I always said we needed to always have a plan about where does Hopevale want to be in 20 years, but I don't think that sort of thing works, you know.
Yep.
because you've got everybody, the state government, the federal government, they've all got their own ideas. They've all got these departments that have funding for this, funding for that,
Yep.
and it's all piecemeal done. So in a way, you're sort of fixing the little things and not the big things, you know. So there's a lot of that piecemeal funding where, oh yeah, you can do that, we'll do caring for country, we'll fix that over there, we'll put a couple of rangers in and we'll let them work and whatever, and then it's all over the place and not sort of a concerted plan to where we're going to look like in a few years. So we're not really developing a building block for the future. And well, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of things that we don't. There's a lot of things we miss out on education as well, and that, you know, I think that, you know, Indigenous sports academies would really do well because, you know, that's where the money is. You know, I mean, who wants a job shoveling shit when you can play football and earn a couple of $1 million? You know. You know, and we think, and I see the schools going, oh, we have to send them to academia. We want them to learn this and learn that. Oh, I say bullshit. Just learn them how to kick and bloody, you know, teach them how to kick and bloody left and right foot and all that sort of stuff. And that's where the schools should be doing and concentrating on sports, cricket, tennis, whatever. And then that sort of thing might happen, you know. But there's nothing like that. It's all piecemeal shit where, oh, we're going to set up the swimming pool, we're going to fund somebody at $50 an hour to run these programs over here. And that'll help, you know.
So it sounds like you're saying there's so much bureaucracy involved in every kind of decision or aspiration. And that kind of, you know, is a roadblock. It restricts progress.
And then about making other people's decisions. So you got, we got to consult with the community. Yeah, I know the community thing's okay, but only if they're thing, you know, got positive things. And then, but there needs to be a plan about what things. So not coming up with an idea every now and then and saying, oh, that doesn't work, I will go this way, you know.
Sure.
But I've seen a lot of things. The sports and recreation is funded by this group, you know. We're going to do infrastructure is funded by this group, and we're going to do little bits of infrastructure here, and then like we're here doing now with the community's got roads, they got this, but I don't know if there's any real plan about what we're supposed to look like in 20 years, you know. And yeah.
Do you think the voice to Parliament would have been a good solution to some of the problems you're describing?
No.
Yeah. How come?
No, because it just puts another bureaucracy in place. And I've been in Canberra and I've been to all these places in Queensland governments and stuff like that. We have to go through the government. You have to go through the bureaucracy to get to the government, and then the bureaucracy takes time, and then you've got to channel so you've got to be in the know or getting around so that you get an answer from somebody. It's like a delay thing, it's bullshit.
Advocates of the Voice would have said that it's a direct line to government, direct line to executive.
Well, I don't know, why do we lose? If it was so, you know, I don't think. Maybe an idea like that, but it's just another pseudo government. It's like that was what and everybody's got that thing is that you have one government over here, but there's another government over here, and we're all going to work on this government to tell this government. But I've been into the National Indigenous whatever it is in Canberra, and there's not many black people working in there. You know? And so how are we going to work this other one? If there was a yes, who actually gets to sit in there? And if it is the same people that are there lying around now, but in Cape York here, we have to go through a process where we've got the Cape York partnerships, we've got a Cape York Institute, we've got all those places that make all these policies and that. What for? Are they working? We're still in the same boat. And anyway, I don't see many really prosperous businesses around. You know.
So what do you think? What do you think is the answer here? Like for Indigenous progress and prosperity.
I think that you need to bring young, clever ideas in front, and then make sure. Yeah, there's a lot of clever people out there, but they get put down and things. So there's a lot of people who get into places and they want to, stagnate things, and then I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing is that what is the answer? Because from what I can tell from the debate around the voice is that there are so many well-intentioned people who would like to see better health outcomes, education, housing, employment outcomes for Indigenous people, but something is preventing or has been preventing that from happening for so long.
I think it's totally is really accountability, and I think that yes, we all know the government always says there's a couple of $1 million we've spent on but what is it they're really spending the money on, and when you look at it, it's probably buildings, bureaucrats, crap and all that, when you have a building, the maintenance costs you just as much to bloody, you know what I mean, and the same thing as when you got cars and things, and so everything but it has to be managed properly, and why I don't know, I don't want to get into
it. Seems like you're an advocate for kind of private enterprise.
All the way.
Yeah.
And that's the only way it can, everybody can rise above and develop other things.
I mean, that's kind of like a white fella.
It is, it's the only way it can work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you got to have that capitalism, and people have got to be able to make money to survive.
Yep.
Yeah, and not be bickering around for, I'm going to wait for the next funding to come in, so I can do that with this, And I see that a lot of the services that are around now, they're continually having to apply for funding. We've got to do that, and we've got to wait for this money before we can do that money. And so it needs a real shake up and work out where I suppose the recurrent funding opportunities are for what works, and then start to tick off what doesn't work,
What was your reaction? I mean, obviously, anyone could kind of see it coming that the polls were pointing to a defeat of the referendum. What was your reaction when just so overwhelmingly, every state and majority of individuals voted no to the referendum? How were you sort of feeling last night?
Oh no, I didn't know. I always knew they wasn't going to get up. But I already had some discussions with people, and we spoke about that, and we think that the angle is wrong. I mean, we all recognise that we should be in the Constitution as Aboriginal people of recognition, but not through the voice. And why was that put in there? That was the stuffer. Putting that in there through the voice is just bloody.
Yeah.
And people are right. There's a lot of people that were pushing the issue, unelected people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I could see that plain clear. That hang on, where are these people from? Oh yeah, they've gone through this, and they've, basically it's about if they scream loud enough, they'll get heard. And that's how it is, But and I'm saying that there was a strong no vote people that were elected people, and to me, and I've heard a couple of young people on there, some interviews with young people saying, no, we don't want the voice. We need real government. We need to get into real government.
Are you well, a couple of questions just back on the Constitution. Would just recognition in the Constitution be symbolic only and not really mean anything? Like, would just that symbol?
I think it'd be a step towards. The states are working towards treaties and stuff like that. So I think these are steps in place so that you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if it was just the recognition of the Constitution, but without any kind of body, like advocacy body, do you think that merely symbolic movement would be worthwhile? Just having the recognition without the voice.
Well, I guess a lot of people would feel like they're part of Australia for a start.
Yeah. Yep. a lot of people, I'm just looking on social media and people who are commenting on the outcome of the Voice, saying, it's a sad day for Australia, an embarrassing day for Australia. Who would have known how racist Australia is? What do you think of that kind of reaction?
No, I don't think everybody's being racist. I mean, I think that if you go to a referendum without all the full answers, it's going to be a no.
Without all the what, sorry?
Full answers. People want to know how is it going to work, who's going to be in it, Nobody really knew. They said, let's vote on it, let's get it through the gate, and then we'll work on it later. Well, I would not accept anything like that, would you? Hang on, just sign the contract there and we'll figure out the rest later.
Are you prepared to share which way you voted, yes or no? You don't have to.
No.
Yep, no, that's okay. And Ivan, treaty. Just, I'm not really sure what is meant by treaty. What's your kind of explanation of what that's all about?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I think it's basically it's individual nations doing a treaty amongst whoever,
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than everybody having an Australian treaty. It's about I think it's something like they did in Western Australia, where they. Yeah, I think I'm not sure about so much about, but I know that it relates to an area, and it may be a certain tribe or maybe certain clans and stuff like that, rather than the whole of Australia.
Are you optimistic about the future progress and plight of Indigenous people?
Look, yes, I think I am, as long as there's education and there's opportunities and people get a chance to work. And I've sort of seen I've seen skills advanced in Aboriginal people. I worked in the employment and training industry. When I worked on Aboriginal apprenticeships for the Cape, and when I first started, it was about 1993. It was not that long ago, 1993, and there was the retention rate for Aboriginal apprenticeships at that time was about 3%. And they said, and can you find some apprentices? Well, I went around and I looked and see who did an apprenticeship or some people did, but it was very rare. And now, and then in those first couple of years, and now there's apprentices and traineeships and tradesmen everywhere. I mean, the problem that I had back in those days was we were trying to bring these people into apprenticeships, but it was dissimilar to something that happened in the mainstream where your grandfather and your father had done a trade. But in Aboriginal society, that was not the case.
Yeah.
So they didn't know, and they didn't really basically say, that's the need. Whereas in normal mainstream society, they know that there was a need to have a skill that you could sell to other people.
Yep.
And that there wasn't quite obvious and then now it's slowly getting there, and I think that's the increase, and that's the basis that I always think is that if you want to survive in this world, then you've got to have a skill that somebody will pay for, that you can sell off, And if we don't keep doing that, we'll skilling people plus getting people that work experience, and then drive them, will help them with employment bases with jobs and businesses. Then that can happen, and that can only happen if people are in job and really.
And then even before that, educating, kids being educated to kind of
it's got to happen, and along the way you can do all so it's about key. And I always got that, we had, like people used to, I worked in employment and training with the mines and all that. We had contracts with the, Alcan, Rio Tinto, Camalco, Cape Flattery mines, and we would do some of the apprenticeship recruitments and stuff, and then teachers used to come along and say, oh, it's very hard for them to get an apprenticeship, and we're saying, and they, how are our kids going to get an apprenticeship? And this is the school age, we just tell the school, just teach them how to read and write.
Yeah.
If the school's concentrating on teaching people how to read and write instead of every other thing, then people will go through the system in life so much easier, And so, and hopefully that's working, but I don't know, I don't know if the teachers are getting better skilled or I don't know. But I see a lot of kids in my day and age that can't read and write. What's happening? Just slipping through the gaps,
My final question is, you hear a lot of narrative about the Indigenous people's connection to country and this ingrained connection to Australia and the lands and the seas and that kind of thing. Do you have any comment about that? And you living up here and in your tribal area, and how you feel about being on this land?
Yeah, I think some people get the cultural aspect a bit out of there is a spiritual cultural aspect, and there is in depth, and you sort of, but how do you put it? Just culture is basically living. I'm living on the land, and that to me is my culture.
What's that? Sorry.
Culture is living. How I live. What do I make for dinner? What do I do? Where do I go? And it's changing all the time. So basically, I fix the tractor. I do this. I got to do what means a means of survival. I mean, there is culture, and it's deep, and we hold our culture. And I was at a few conferences where people where some of the schools were getting involved with training people, and they said, oh, but we want to make sure that we're culturally appropriately teaching these kids. You've got to tell us how we fit that in with your culture. And some of the elders, and this is in Arakoon, the elders said, don't you worry about that. We'll teach them culture. You teach them how to read and write. Yeah.
Interesting. It's been really good talking to you. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad I travelled all the way up here to one of the most remote places I've ever seen. I've ever seen. It's an interesting spot. Can I take your photograph down there on the beach? I reckon.
Okay, right. With my workshop.